Investigators in Florida are trying to make the case against the suspect in her killing, her own mother, who remains in jail indicted in her daughter's death. Authorities confirmed on Friday that the remains found near Anthony's home were those of her little girl. And this weekend, they searched that home again. Andrea Canning has the latest.
Just moments after investigators ended their search of this area where the remains of Caylee Anthony were discovered, a crowd of onlookers couldn't wait to get a first-hand look at the crime scene.
Awful, awful. Sick.
Now that Caylee's been identified through DNA, the real work for investigators begins.
The cause of death will be listed as homicide by undetermined means.
Determining how she was murdered could be difficult. The medical examiner admits toxicology tests may prove useless.
Whatever might have been in Caylee's system obviously is not there anymore. When there is no trauma to the bones and there is no evidence at the scene to really tell you clearly what happened, probably never going to be able to say absolutely what caused Caylee's death.
Leaving investigators to try and link Caylee's mother, Casey Anthony, to the murder through her alleged lies and the forensic evidence. Over the weekend, police searched the Anthony home again, removing 2 large boxes and a bag. Investigators say the search warrant was obtained with probable cause from new evidence gathered last week, evidence likely from the crime scene or the autopsy. Police had previously taken a vacuum cleaner, a pillow, and household chemicals.
Forensic specialists may have told them, see if you can go find items A, B, and C, because if you can find those, it will better help us match or associate evidence found at the scene to possibly some item that belongs to Casey.
Caylee's body has now been released for burial. Her grandfather made a rare appearance Saturday, only to accept flowers from a friend. For Good Morning America, Andrea Canning, ABC News.
So now the question is, what will the case be? And to chew on that, let's bring in Roy Black, one of the top criminal defense attorneys in Florida. Roy, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Chris.
All right, so let's look at this from the outside. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence here, obviously, on top of what they now have with the remains. You have the month-long wait. You have the car that smelled like death. You have the non-existent babysitter. You have the actions of the mother after the news of the missing child comes out. How do you put all this together and defend against it?
Well, this is obviously a very tough case because there's a wealth of circumstantial evidence, some of which you just outlined, and her defense lawyer is going to have an explanation which takes all this into account. Now, of course, we don't know exactly what the mother's defense is since we haven't talked to her, but probably the only thing she can rely on is some type of an accidental death. We know that she wanted to go out partying, that she really didn't want the child to begin with. She's a habitual liar. Probably what happened here is she gave some of this chloroform to the child to put her to sleep so she could go out to a club or something like that. Probably gave her too much, caused the death of the child. She panicked and then disposed of the body. Probably her best defense is that maybe she's guilty of manslaughter, some lesser offense, because let's face it, every one of these details points to her as the only perpetrator of the crime.
And of course, you do have juries who have found that if you've done something like that to a child, even if your intent wasn't to kill them, they may impute the intent because it's so reckless. So help us through this. How will the cause of death come to bear in this case? How big a difference can it make?
Oh, it makes a tremendous difference. In any homicide case, the most important piece of evidence, I know this sounds very cynical, but the most important piece of evidence is always the body, because the body tells you what happened to the deceased. In this case, there's no trauma to the bones, there are no knife marks, bullet marks, things like that. And without the tissue, you can't tell about poisoning. So the state cannot prove the cause of death. This gives the mother an opportunity to explain through her testimony that the child died accidentally. And there's really nothing that the state has to rebut that, except the prejudice that the jury's going to have against the mother for doing something as horrible as this.
And there's no underestimating that, is there, Roy?
No, there isn't, because let's face it, average people on a jury, they look at a mother causing the death of the child and then goes out partying, lies about it. I mean, it's just an awful set of circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a really big point there, is that when that jury is looking at this mother, how did you react? Premeditation in their mind could very easily be tripped up by how you behave surrounding the circumstances, right? Because it is up to their discretion how they decide to understand the facts, right?
That's true, but remember, the judge will make it very clear to them that it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that she intended to and planned the murder of the child. That is premeditation. That's why she has it out here of arguing for a lesser crime like manslaughter. I did it accidentally. I didn't intend it. There's no proof that I intended it. So that gives her somewhat of a defense.
You also have nobody else who's really a suspect in the case at this point. Let me ask you something. You are the one and only Roy Black. You get a phone call about this case. Do you think with confidence you say, yeah, I'll take this case, I can win it?
Well, it's very hard to say, because the most important thing to do is to talk to the client here, who's the mother. Now, we've all demonized her because of this, but she may have an explanation for this. I hope for her case she has a good explanation, because a lawyer is going to need something to work with here, because it's a pretty tough case.
One of those tricky conversations with the client also, because you don't know if she's telling you the truth or not. Roy Black, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.